go. That's more like it. Let's see if the rest of you come back. Hopefully you come back. Oh my. All right. Well, let's go live here. We'll tell everybody. Okay, there you are, Alec and James. Hopefully everybody else figured out we had to do a new show. All right, I'm starting TikTok now. Since I was a little afraid you guys might not know, I was going to tell people on TikTok to tell you. There we go. Yeah, my camera wasn't working on YouTube. I had to leave the show and start a new one, or it wouldn't. TikTok, YouTube won't let you change the camera. Hey, Ash. Hey, guys on TikTok. YouTube won't let you change the camera once the show starts. So like it didn't recognize the camera. There's nothing I could do about it. Anyway, hey, TikTokers. We had a little bit of a YouTube glitch. If the other YouTube is still live, go and tell those people. I deleted it. It should be gone by now. People should know. Anyway, thank you, Jetta. Hey, guys. How we doing today? Welcome. It's June 6th, anniversary of D-Day. Thank you, Alan, for the gift. Oh boy. Hey, world. Thank you, Succeed. Both of you guys for the gifts. Oh, boy. Chazak. Thank you, John S. So all the auction items got mailed out today. So the ones from last week, that is. So those are on their way. Any of you who won. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Sunshine. Yes, I removed the first one on YouTube. Hopefully it's that way. I figured people would know. They'd get kicked out and they'd know, go somewhere else. Thank you, Jetta, for the gift. Anyway, yeah, interesting date today. Thank you, Sunshine. Very nice gift there. Oh, man. So, yeah, lots of good news today. You are no longer a unicorn. I'm not sure what that means, Deb. Thank you, Vicky, for the dancing flowers. Love those. Hey, Eve. So, yes, we are back. We had a little bit of a glitch on YouTube. It wasn't recognizing my camera. Thank you, Monica, for that very nice gift. And Sunshine for dancing flowers. Like those too. But yeah, we had a little bit of a problem where YouTube wasn't recognizing my camera, and there's no way to change it once YouTube is live. Like once the video's live, I can't change the camera. So I had to leave and start a new video. So sorry, YouTubers. Hopefully everybody else figures that out too. Anyway, welcome everybody. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. It is my nightly show. We do 6 o'clock Eastern time US. I see we've already got a troll. Goodbye, crazy trolls. We have an anti-vax troll. Well, you know what? I recommend people do every vaccine they can. Since the troll is weighing in, I'm going to weigh in. So there we go. Community flag comment filter will hide new comments based on what our community mutes, blocks, and reports in live. Approve these comments to unhide them from viewers. I'm going to turn it on. All right, just for fun, Ash, I turned on community comment filter. So if enough of you report some comment, it may go away. And Ash, you guys, you and Manda and Big Hawk and the rest of you, you guys on TikTok should have access to the hidden comments. It already told me that it automatically hit a comment. You should have access to it. I clicked some setting a while ago. So if you can, hey, Manny, thank you for subscribing. So if you guys want to check that out, check it out now, actually, because it claimed it hid some comment before I even turned the filter on. No gumdrop, but you are going to get, good. Look, you guys already hit a comment. Interesting. Okay. I'm seeing a comment. Oh, happy Pride. Okay. That's not good. That's not good. Approved comment. Happy Pride. It hid. That's bad. Okay. TikTok. Thank you, Ava. Actually, so Ashley, you know what you guys should do? I think, were you able to see the happy Pride comment too that was hidden? And the other person who's asking for money, if you're able to see it, then we're okay. Because that means, okay, good. Then you'll be able to see it and unmute it. All I had to do was click the little eye, and I was able to turn it on. Thank you, Play. So yeah, so you guys are able to help hide stuff, which is kind of cool. Very interesting. And if anything gets hidden by accident, Ash and the mods can look and basically unmod the good stuff. Thank you, Ava. So anyway, woo-woo. Vicky, TikTok stealing your money again. Ugh, Vicky, the PO boxes don't work. They're too expensive. And I've already had this problem before with post office boxes. The US post office sucks. They filled my post office box with all the crap that all the hair salons had before me. Every week, they wanted me to empty the box every 2 days. I'm not buying a PO box for $500 a year to empty it every 2 days because it's all crap. So yeah, unfortunately, the PO box thing doesn't work. The other ways to send money is just do PayPal. PayPal, Venmo, Cash App. Super easy. I mean, super easy. And I don't mean to be a jerk about it, but like nowadays, people have got to use PayPal. PayPal is the number one way to send money. It is the easiest way. It is totally safe. And I mean, at this point in life, you've got to use PayPal. I mean, I'm sort of not just for me, but I'm sort of a proselytizer of PayPal because I think I forget what they call it in economics, when somebody basically has the monopoly on something and they're so far ahead of everybody else that you just kind of have to use them because, anyway. All right, guys. All right. Let's get rolling here. So thank you, everybody. But yeah, the P.O. Box thing really pissed me off. They just kept sending me old people's mail. And I was like, I'm not going to empty it every 2 days because you keep filling it up with crap from a hair salon. Thank you, Jen. All right, let's get rolling, guys. So interesting, very, very, very interesting news day. Thank you, Richard, for the gift. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. It is my nightly show I do Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern, where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Really interesting news day. Today is the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landing. That is the landing of the Allied troops at Normandy, France. It was a huge turning point. It was the turning point in World War II, the war against the Germans. Big deal. Big deal. Interestingly enough, President Zelensky was invited. Thank you, Super Hornet. But Putin wasn't. Now, this gets very interesting, okay? I mean, this was like on a number of levels, this was sort of a psychological game against the Russians, okay? Sorry, I was funny. I'm looking at the little comments that are being asked. I'm sure you're approving them, so we're good. It's catching my eye, all the little comments that TikTok is automatically hiding. But in any case, so the Allied troops that landed at D-Day, almost 200,000 troops. Thank you, Mustard, for the gift. Thank you, Kevin. Almost 200,000 Allied troops back in 1944. 4,500 died that first day landing on the beach. It was a horrific. You've got to watch the videos of it. Just horrific, sort of what these guys went through. The Russians were not a part of D-Day, but the Russians were a part of World War II. Now, the Russian, of course, involvement in World War II is complicated because the Russians kind of helped start World War II by siding with the Nazis, right? Those bad people in Germany. The Russians were their allies. Thank you, Marie. The Russians literally signed a secret pact, Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. You can Google it, with the bad Germans, and they interesting. Oh, sorry, looking at this. Okay, sorry. So, like, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'll have to look at that later. But the Russians reached a pact with the Germans and told them, look, if you want to go and invade Europe and start World War II, you go for it, right? We're not going to attack you. You feel free to go ahead. Thank you, Doughboy, because the Russians were afraid, or the Germans were afraid of going to war with the Russians and the West and it being kind of a mess. Thank you, Derek. So the Russians basically said, you go for it. You start invading the West. We're not going to touch you. Friendship treaty. Well, that gave Hitler the go-ahead to start World War II. Well, 2 years in, the Germans turn around and what did they do? They attacked the Russians, the Soviet Union. So all of a sudden, the Soviets were at war with the Germans anyway because the Germans backstabbed them. Well, the Russians, which have you believe today, right? Soviet Union stops existing in 1991. It falls apart at the seams. And the Russians now, to this day, two different main things with World War II. The Russians are convinced that they single-handedly solved World War II, that they single-handedly beat the Germans. Now, a lot of Soviets did die in World War II. Thank you, adventurers. Of course, part of the reason the Soviets died in World War II is because their government became friends with the Germans and helped start World War II. They don't tell you that. The Russians love to talk about how they're the great saviors of World War II, right? The other thing is that the West helped save Russia's ass in World War II. Once the Russians decided to finally start fighting the Germans and not help the Germans actually begin World War II, the US, the Brits, others with Lend-Lease, we kept Russia alive in World War II. In any case, bottom line is, you come to today. Well, in order to be kind of catty with the Russians, Putin was not invited to the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landing today in France. Now, of course, you couldn't really invite Putin because how do you invite him as an ally, right? It just doesn't work with the war going on in Ukraine. What's really good, though, they invited Zelensky. And I remember at first I was thinking, why did they invite Zelensky? That's kind of weird. I mean, just because I was like, well, I mean, I'm glad they invited him, but it seemed out of place. Well, here's the thing. Zelensky has just as much a right to claim that Ukraine was the hero of World War II as the Russians do. You know why? Because in World War II, it was the Soviet Union who finally turned around and decided to attack the Russian, well, attack back the Russians when the Russians attacked them. I'm sorry, the Germans when the Germans attacked them. The Soviets were the ones in the end who helped us win World War II. It wasn't the Russians. It was the Soviets. Well, guess who the Soviets were? The Soviets were the Russians, the Ukrainians, the Belarusians, the Estonians, the Latvians, the Lithuanians, the Georgians, the Kazakhs, right? The Uzbeks, all the different countries that were part of the Soviet Union. Well, thank you, Vicky. What that means is President Zelensky has just as much a right to claim the mantle of World War II for Ukraine as Putin does for Russia. So what they did, which is really kind of brilliant, is not only did they not invite Putin, which is a slight, because the Russians, the whole Russian national identity, I kid you not, is like cemented to this notion that they saved the world in World War II. Thank you, Christine. I mean, guys, it was 80 years ago, and the Russians still, they act like it was yesterday, right? The point is, so by Putin not being invited, it's a slight to the Russians because their whole ego is based on this notion of World War II. Thank you, Dale. Thank you, Marge. Thank you, Christine, for the gifts. But by inviting Zelensky instead, it's an extra slight because it's telling the Russians correctly, you're not really the ones who inherit the mantle of World War II in the Soviet Unions. All 15 countries of the Soviet Union, the Estonians, the Latvians, the Lithuanians, right, the Ukrainians, everybody gets credit, not just the Russians. So it was like a double FU that the Allies did to the Russians, which is why I get such a kick out of it, because it was just that. It was really good. So Zelensky goes today. There was an incredibly moving video. You've got to find it. You can Google it. It'll be in the news of there's a World War II veteran. Mind you, these guys are 98 years old, 100. The average age of these guys is 100 years. The surviving, because World War II was 80 years ago was D-Day, right? At that point, these guys were already 18 years old at least. So these guys their average age is 100 years. And this old American World War II veteran, like 100 years old, is being wheeled in. And they're at Normandy. They're on the beach. They've got a whole big setup with a stage. The president, now, of course, the sun's going to come. Really? Well, you know what? I'm going to put up my little thing on the window to cover the sun. 1 second. It's been cloudy all day, so I didn't put up my little sheet. But now it's being sunny, which I like, but not for you. There we go. Okay. One more thing, guys. I usually hide the sun when I'm doing the show, but it wasn't sunny until a minute ago. There we go. The whole day's been cloudy, so I haven't really had to worry about the sun. There we go. So World War II veterans getting wheeled in, American, probably 100 years old. Thank you, Christine. And Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, bends down. And it's really cute because he bends down and he goes, "Oh, sir, nice to meet you." And he goes, and you can hear the guy say something like, "Whoa, what?" And the guy goes, Trudeau goes, "Oh, I'm the Prime Minister of, I'm Justin Trudeau." And the guy's still looking at him. He goes, "The Prime Minister of Canada." So the guy, it was cute. The guy didn't know he was the Prime Minister of Canada. Trudeau then turns and goes, "And this is President Zelensky of Ukraine." The guy, the 100-year-old US veteran from D-Day, grabs Zelensky's hand and then takes his other hand and takes it and tries to kiss it. And Zelensky goes, "No, no, 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 no." And they have this wonderful back and forth. I have to see. I've got some of the quote here. Thank you, Courtney. Hang on a second. The back and forth, the man says to Zelensky, "You are the savior of the people." And Zelensky says, "No, no, no, you saved Europe." Because Zelensky speaks English, but his English isn't perfect, right? "You saved Europe." The man says, "Can I get a photo with you?" And he goes, "Of course." So they're sitting there and the guy's in a wheelchair. I mean, it's absolutely adorable, this sort of video. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Bryce. Thank you, Jonathan. And the guy says to him again, "You are our hero." And Zelensky says, "No, you are our hero." And the man is still shaking Zelensky's hand and says, "I pray for you." It was, and at this point, the cameras figured out what was going on, and they've beamed the entire thing like on the big jumbotron, so everyone in the audience is watching this. It was absolute. But I mean, the guy grabs Zelensky's hand and immediately grabs it and tries to kiss his hand. I mean, it was absolutely, it was amazing. I mean, it really was quite a moment. And Zelensky, you could tell Zelensky was like, oh my God. It was pretty cool. So let's talk about the big news of today. Good news. Thank you, Ellie. So the big news today is that France is sending fighter jets to Ukraine. Thank you, Sean. And let me just say, I predicted this. This doesn't mean I was right, so to speak. And what I mean by that is there was some evidence a week ago, okay? You may remember this. A week ago, we got wind that the French were going to be sending military trainers to Ukraine, right? And I don't know if you guys remember, but I was saying, thank you, Vicky. I was saying at the time that one of the articles I read quoted the French saying they would send them to train the Ukrainians on a number of things, including how to fly and maintain Western fighter jets. And I asked you guys and said, why would the French military be sending trainers to train the Ukrainians on fighter jets when the only fighter jets the Ukrainians are getting are F-16s and the French don't use F-16s? Did France just let slip that they're sending French fighter jets to Ukraine? That's what got announced today. France is sending fighter jets to Ukraine. We actually don't know how many, Mike. I think that may be a typo. There is one source that I don't really trust claiming it's 5 fighter jets. It's some random guy on TikTok who I'm not going to trust. They're Mirage 2000-5 fighter jets. I think that might be why some people think it's 5. I believe it's 2000-5. I don't think it was 5 jets. Maybe I'm wrong. But the French are going to send fighter jets to Ukraine. They're selling them. The jets will not start arriving until the end of the year. Now, that's not such a bad thing. They're not arriving till the end of the year because the French said it's going to take 5 or 6 months to train the Ukrainians on using the French jets and basically maintaining them. Thank you, Christine. And thank you, Anthony, for doing the gift membership. Oh, you gifted a membership that Eve got. Oh, that's nice of you. Thank you for that over on YouTube. Appreciate that. It's going to take 5 to 6 months to train the Ukrainians on how to fly and maintain the French fighter jets. Thank you, Tom. Therefore, the jets don't need to arrive really for 5 or 6 months. The training is going to start this summer. So it's going to take a couple months to get the training going. It'll take place in France. So basically, they're not going to, the Ukrainians won't be ready to fly the jets until December anyway. A quick little aside, some folks were asking, hey, Wigglesworth from the UK, good to see you. Some people were asking, thank you, Jeremy, if the Ukrainians even have the troops available to train on these planes. And the answer is yes. How do we know that? Thank you, Tiny Diney, for the gift. We know that because the Ukrainians, remember I reported yesterday, the Ukrainians went to the Americans and said, look, we've got extra pilots ready to be trained. You're not training enough pilots. You're only letting 6 or 8 pilots at a time train. We need to train more. Can you give us more training? And the Americans said, no. We've got who is that? Thank you, Amanda, for the festival bling. The Americans said, no, we've got a lot of other countries that are already being trained, that they're in line to be trained. We can't let you skip the line. That means Ukraine had pilots ready to be trained, but the Americans didn't have the space to train them. That means there's space for the Ukrainians to be trained by the French. All around, this is great. A little bit more on the planes. This was via Sky News. The Mirage 2000s are equipped with 2 30-millimeter guns and can travel more than twice the speed of sound. They were first used by the French Air Force in 1984. The 2000-5 version has upgraded radar systems and can carry fuel drop tanks, which increase its range significantly. Anyway, this is great news. Now, thank you, Vicky, for the gift. Another interesting issue here is what restrictions will the French put on the planes? Thank you, Ava. Lots of little gifts there from Ava. Appreciate that. And thank you, Vicky, for the hat and mustache. What restrictions, if any, will the French put on using these planes? Macron did a quick interview probably at Normandy and pretty much said there's not a lot of restrictions. Now, it was summarized, rather than reciting the whole script of the interview with Macron, there was a nice summary of it by Edward Hunter Christie, who is a researcher at the Finnish Institute of International Affairs. Thank you, Fred, for the gift, and Lisa as well. He summarized Macron's position. Macron's positions on the strikes into Russia is far superior to that of Biden. Biden's position is based on distance. Ukraine may use U.S. weapons to strike short distances over the border, but 200 miles is too much. Macron's position is that Ukrainians should be allowed to use Western weapons to take out those Russian military installations or objects on Russian soil that are used by Russia to attack Ukraine. That's it. No additional limit on distance. Now, one thing that was very interesting is in the interview with Macron, he was specifically asked, and thank you, Rose, for the gift. He was specifically asked and said, look, President Biden has said that he's going to allow them up to this distance or whatever. Are you going to have a similar restriction? And Macron responded and said, basically, no, it's up to the Russians. Basically, our guys will be able to hit the Russians to hit systems that are attacking Ukraine. Really good, basically. So now let's see. I mean, the French may still have specific restrictions, who knows? But so far, they're putting fewer restrictions than the Americans are. Now, somebody had asked in the thank you, Vicky. Lots of gifts coming in from Vicky. Thank you. And Tony as well. Somebody had asked in the comments on TikTok today why the French turned from being kind of dovish on the war to kind of hawkish. Now, hawkish means kind of, let's go get them. And dovish is, oh my God, we better be afraid of the Russians. Let's have peace, right? Not let's have peace, but oh my God, peace at all costs, right? And at the beginning of the war, France was getting on our nerves. I mean, Macron at the beginning of the war, remember, he kept having all that shuttle diplomacy with Putin, and he kept doing all the phone calls with Putin. And it was just, it came across like he was helping Putin in a way. Like Putin was trying to present to the world, oh, I want peace, this kind of bullshit, right? Well, now France, and France, by the way, has not given a lot of weapons to Ukraine. I mean, France gave something like under $1 billion worth of weapons. The Germans have given $19 billion worth of weapons, or euros, same difference, really. Well, now things changed. Now, why did it change? You guys may remember a few months ago, I was translating an article from Le Monde explaining this. That was when TikTok banned me for a week because apparently they didn't like me translating an article from Le Monde, one of the most famous newspapers in the world. It's the French newspaper, and I was reading the article to you in French, translating it into English. TikTok couldn't handle that. But what the article said was that a couple different things happened in February of this year with Macron. First, he saw that the Greek prime minister was in southern Ukraine, and the Russians almost killed him, really. The Russians bombed the Greek prime minister, bombed near the Greek prime minister, like a couple 100 feet away. It was like, it wasn't far, a couple 100 meters. It was not far. Really could have killed the guy, and they didn't care. Second of all, and this was apparently, according to Le Monde, this was what really infuriated Macron and changed everything. I mean, it freaked him out, I think. And the Russians totally shot themselves in the foot on this. Remember Dmitry Medvedev? He's our favorite Russian who is always threatening nuclear war with the West. He's the one literally 3 times a week. And he's cuckoo, right? Now, he used to be Russian president, but he's a Russian prime minister, actually. He's cuckoo now. And he's always 3 times a week threatening nuclear war, right? So Medvedev, maybe February, March at the latest, Macron was talking about going to Ukraine. And Medvedev turns around and basically threatened to kill Macron. And he said, if you come to Ukraine, our weapons are going to target you, basically. Thank you, Doug. Not only did he say this, but this was right after the Russians appeared to target the Greeks, right? The Greek prime minister, who's a member of NATO. This not only infuriated Macron, according to the article in Le Monde, but I believe, according to the article, thank you, Cyril, it changed his mindset entirely. Basically, and it's hard to me, I mean, maybe it's not hard to explain this to you. Because I've done foreign policy forever, right? And by the way, Ash, feel free to take what that guy's doing and ban it. If you want to go into the mute, feel free to have a little, at least for today, just ban the word. Make it easy. And we'll come back to it. But I've been doing foreign policy stuff for like 40 years. So to me, I hear stuff like the Russians casually threatening to kill the French president. And I go, are you crazy? Not are you crazy because you do it, because we know the Russians wouldn't do it. The Russians would never do it. They know it would be nuclear war. Thanks, Ash. They know it would be nuclear war, right? French have nukes. French are a member of NATO. The Russians aren't going to kill the French president. But threatening to kill him is beyond the pale. It is something that a mature country doesn't do. It is something that adults don't do. It's something crazy people do. And I don't say crazy in the sense of, I don't think the Russian government's crazy. Excuse me. The Russian government knows exactly what it's doing. They're rational, but they act like children in terms of the policies they make and in terms of their little temper tantrums. And when the former Russian prime minister, who is very close to Putin, came out and suggested that the Russians would assassinate President Macron if he went to Ukraine, that was the sort of, according to Le Monde, that was sort of the switch that went off in Macron's head when he said, these people are our enemy. You know, that these people are not going to stop. They don't want peace, and we have to defeat them. And the rest is history. That was when Macron decided that France would, at some point, if necessary, send troops to Ukraine. He had said at that point, finally went public with it and said that if there's a, thank you, Meta, for the gift, if there were the risk of the Russians taking Kyiv or taking Odessa, meaning taking over those cities, the key Russian, Ukrainian cities, that the French would send troops to stop it. Then the French went public and said, in fact, they would send troops to Ukraine sometime soon to basically train the Ukrainians, that the French are planning on now sending 200 troops. I don't think he was president. Was he president at the time? Was that when Putin became prime minister and he was president? Is that what it was, Meta? Basically, Putin and Medvedev kind of switched positions. So Medvedev probably was president and Putin was prime minister at that point. That may be it. Thank you, Pedro. In any case, doesn't really matter. He was one of the leaders of the country, at least putative leaders. Putin was still in charge. So that's what happened. That's what happened with Macron. Macron certainly had a come to Jesus moment and realized the Russians were dangerous. It's really, and basically it means the Russians screwed the pooch, to use the expression. That basically the reason the French came around, thank you, Vicky, the reason Ukrainians are now getting French fighter jets is because the Russians, and Medvedev in particular, thought he was going to be cute and threatened to kill Macron because he thought he was going to be cute doing that, right? I mean, really amazing, really amazing. Actually, oh, you know what's good too, Ash, although you know this, looking at the muted comments also gives us a sense of who a troll is. That person gets muted. The one that just put the comment there. I'm sure you know that already, but it just got me going. Like, I'm liking, there's a new feature we turned on where TikTok is sort of muting comments based on your suggestions, and we get to see them immediately so we can decide to unmute them. So in other words, the trolls won't be able to mute stuff, but it's kind of helpful because it's letting us see who the trolls are before they can even go public. Haha. Thank you, Rebel Intel, for the rose. Anyway, very interesting. Very interesting. Oh yeah, that guy's toast. He's toast. Oh man. Anyway, so that's great news. We've got lots more stories here. Please do keep the gifts coming, guys. Thank you, Linka. I'm going to call you Linka. I know it's Link, AKA, for the rose. I do this for a living, guys. I do it full time, and your guys' gifts help me pay the bills. So please do keep them coming. And remember, you can do memberships as well. You can become a monthly member. Thank you, Lamb Chop. Thank you, Mikey. We're basically, you contribute a certain amount each month. You can check out in the, Callum's joining us. Woo woo. Callum's here today. Lovely. After his long vacation in Paris with the girl. Thank you, Oscar. Thank you, Mikey. Thank you, Super Hornet. But you can also do gift memberships where you can give memberships for other people, which just happened over on TikTok, on YouTube, excuse me, where Anthony gave a gift membership that Eve got. And it basically, you buy a membership for somebody else for a month, which is kind of nice. They get to join our Saturday show. PayPal is still okay. PayPal's very okay. Yes, I very much like PayPal. The only thing is PayPal doesn't give you like the benefits of the Saturday show and stuff because it's too hard to, there's no way for me to do it. Whereas basically PayPal I like because the money goes to me. When you do it at TikTok, 50% of the money goes to TikTok, but what do you do? Any case. All right. A little more news here, guys. Okay. Another reason why I think the French have come around and Macron's being so good on Ukraine now. The Russians, we've been talking about this, and keep an eye on this. The Russians have declared war on Europe, but they're doing it in a cute halfway that's just short of actual war, so the Europeans won't go war, right? They've repeatedly killed like Russian dissidents and people who escaped Russia in Europe, right, with poison. They recently killed a Ukrainian pilot in Spain. Pretty much everyone assumes it was them. Thank you, Janice, for the gift. Previously, they've blown up munition depots in the Czech Republic. I mean, they've done a lot of things that are really, there are acts of war, but they're acts of war that are just small enough to not quite, to not quite cause war, right? Thank you, Janice, for the gift. To not quite cause war. There we go. Vicky, your comment, letting it go public there. Well, what happened yesterday in France, and we talked about this, but the story's getting more interesting. A man gets arrested in Paris. He was in a hotel room making a bomb. The bomb went off in his face. He gets arrested. He is, I believe this is the guy who might have been Russian and Ukrainian nationality both. I saw a report today that he was former Russian military. And the news today out of France is that this guy was planning a terror attack against Roissy, which is the main French Parisian airport. Thank you, Oscar. The Charles de Gaulle. We call it Charles de Gaulle. The French call it Roissy. Charles de Gaulle Airport. It certainly looks like on its face, put it this way, there is great suspicion that the Russian government was behind that attack. The Russians are doing everything they can in order to ruin the Parisian Olympics that are happening in July. And the Russians aren't invited as a team because they were banned from the Olympics as a team. Individual Russian athletes can go, but the Russians as a team can't go. And because the Russian government is basically made up of children, they're throwing a hissy fit. They dumped a bunch of coffins at the Eiffel Tower that read French troops in Ukraine, like, French troops are going to die. I mean, just real childish stuff. And now someone who appears to have connections to the Russian government, former Russian military, is making a bomb in France that appears to have been intended for the France's main airport. And again, you blow a bomb up at France's main airport, a lot of people aren't going to want to come to the Olympics through that airport. This is bad. And this is where we get into the situation where even if Russian intelligence were to do that, right? Are we going to nuke Russia in response? Right? No. Right? I mean, what are you going to put more sanctions? I mean, it gets really complicated. Put more sanctions. Now, what you could do if you had evidence that the Russians, in fact, were planning to blow up the French airport, you could give Ukraine Mirage fighter jets. You could give Ukraine more weapons. From the beginning, I have said this. From the beginning, I have said that, hold on, we've got another troll I'm getting rid of here. From the beginning, I've said that we should establish a quid pro quo with the Russians. Every time the Russians do something outrageous, we should give the Ukrainians either a new weapon we didn't give them before, give them, thank you, Dr. Tinkers, give them more weapons than we gave them. So in other words, say, okay, now they're getting more Patriot missiles, right? Or now they're getting more fighter jets. Now they're getting more HIMARS. Or we give them new rules of engagement. And we say, like we just recently did, like, okay, now you can use your weapons, American weapons, to fire into Russia because of what the Russians did. But you've got to hold the Russians accountable. You've got to start upping the ante every time they do something outrageous. You've got to make them pay a price. And France is making them pay a price, which is pretty amazing. Well, it's kind of a nothing question. I'm going to answer this question just for fun. Someone's asking, can Ukraine, I think they were a troll, but they said, can Ukraine win without US aid? Well, you know what? Russia couldn't win World War II without US aid and British aid, right? Europe couldn't win World War II without US aid. No offense, Europe. You guys did great. We were slow. That doesn't mean it's not a just cause, right? I mean, the Europeans couldn't win against the Nazis until America helped. Does that mean they didn't deserve to win against the Nazis, right? Asia? I mean, America really beat the Japanese in Asia. The Asians needed our help to beat the Japanese. Did that mean the Japanese were actually right in the end? And the Asian countries didn't deserve our help? Thank you, Pete Clark, right? I mean, it's a question that's irrelevant. If a woman's being attacked on the street and she needs my help, that is not an indication that she deserves to be attacked or that I shouldn't help her, right? The idea that, well, would she be able to fight off the guy attacking her without my help? Well, no, she probably couldn't. Does that mean I shouldn't help her? No, it doesn't. So anyway, all right, a little bit more here. So the Russians, by the way, as part of this like irregular warfare being obnoxious with the French, the Russians have detained a French citizen in Russia now, basically kidnapped them the same way they're doing this with a number of Americans. The Russians are trying to claim that it's somebody, a spy, basically. Now, could be. Thank you, Sunshine, for the gift. Could be a spy. I don't know, right? The timing is certainly suspect, right? With all this stuff going on with France and Russia basically attacking France left and right, suddenly the Russians decide to take a French citizen hostage, right? Okay, I'm having one of my little heartburn attacks. I'm going to go get I should have grabbed this before I came. I'm going to get my little heartburn thing, grab it really quick and come right back. I can tell, because once this thing comes, it never goes away until I get my little thing I can drink. Give me 1 second, guys. One moment. One second. One second, guys. I'm coming. I'm coming. All right. All right. All right. There we go. I find for me, Alka-Seltzer works wonders. Actually, I'm going to shut the curtains too, because the sun's coming in and it's hitting my thermostat. Give me a second here, okay? One moment. There we go. All right. That's pretty good. All right. That should be good, I think. Okay, that's good. Yeah. The sunlight was hitting my thermostat. That was the other issue. I told you it was cloudy all day, and suddenly it got sunny, which is great, but it's killing everything. So yes, I discovered long ago for heartburn, Alka-Seltzer works wonders. Nothing else seems to work for me, but Alka-Seltzer is like gold. You know what I did? I had some espresso before the show, which I think was my mistake. Probably not a good idea. There we go. All right. A little bit more here. Speaking of hostages in Russia, the U.S. soldier, remember that really weird story about the American soldier who went to visit his ex-girlfriend who's a Russian, and he was based in South Korea, and he snuck into the Russian Far East to visit his ex-girlfriend to get her back, a Russian girl. She claims he stole from her. He gets arrested. He's now a hostage in Russia. Big surprise. The trial is underway. He's facing 5 years in prison if found guilty. Basically, the Russians are doing what they do. They're once again using the guy as a hostage, basically. The whole thing, frankly, smells like a honeypot. Honeypots are basically when spy agencies set you up with a girl or a boy, depending on your tastes. It's awfully suspicious. It is awfully super suspicious that a U.S. soldier in South Korea meets a Russian. Okay. And she goes back to Russia and leaves him. But for whatever crazy reason, he sneaks and follows her back into Russia. Very weird stuff. It's a weird story. But honestly, they're going to do what they always do. They're going to, hold him hostage. They're going to sentence him to prison for 5 years. And we're going to have to basically get the guy out by trading some super spy or super nasty person. Thank you, Vicky, for the gift. All right, a little bit more here. So Biden today. So Biden today in Normandy at D-Day gave a speech about Putin and World War II and the importance of it, which was really, he gave a good speech. Biden does not always give good speeches, right? This is a good speech about Ukraine, especially. I'll give you just a couple little quotes. He called Putin a tyrant bent on domination. He said it was a test of the ages, insisted NATO is more unified than ever. Isolation was not the answer 80 years ago and is not the answer today. That's in response to Trump. And he added that if Ukraine loses, quote, all of Europe will be threatened. That was interesting. Biden has not said that a lot. Come on in, Sash. He's not said that a lot. Thank you, Tony, for the lightning. Biden has kind of held back on suggesting apocalyptic things happening if Russia wins. And I think, so it's interesting he said that today. I think it's because all along, Biden in his head keeps thinking about the ultimate compromise. How are we going to end the war, right? And in his mind, we can't reach peace with Russia if we keep demonizing Russia, because then, like what he said today, right? If Ukraine loses the war, all of Europe is going to be threatened. Well, that means we can't afford to let Ukraine lose the war, because Putin is going to invade Europe and we have World War III. If that's the case, then we have to be really careful of whatever gets agreed to in peace, for a peace deal. Anyway, I think it's very interesting that Biden said this. I think this is further out there than Biden normally puts himself. Whether he keeps going there or not, I don't know. And yes, Hunter, you slap him down. I was thinking it in my head, but I wasn't going to go off topic and deal with it. Hunter on TikTok is giving somebody a little bit of a geography lesson. So there you go. Thank you, Hunter. A little bit more here. Oh, so this was interesting. A former Air Force guy, former member of the U.S. Air Force named Jake Bro, did an interesting Twitter thread today. Putin, I almost have to laugh telling you guys this stuff. Putin is threatening war again. It's like drink, right? And I laugh about it because the Russians are just so full of themselves on this stuff. It's a total bluff. It's always a bluff. And this time Putin goes, well, if you're going to let them use NATO weapons to fire in Russia, thank you, Vicky, for the gift. And thank you, Sunshine, as well. We're going to give weapons to your enemies to fire into America and fire into Europe. And this guy did a great analysis of it, basically, which I loved. He basically said it's total BS what Putin's saying. Let me read you why. Again, so what happened is Putin says, well, since you're letting Ukraine now fire your weapons into Russia, we're going to give weapons to your enemies to fire into America and Europe. So this guy goes, one, Russians have been doing this for decades already. North Korea, North Vietnam, Cuba, and Iran have all been recipients of Russian weapons going back 80 years. Those weapons were to kill Americans, among others, but mostly Americans, right? Well, not just Americans. Iran was also other interests, but North Korea and North Vietnam, that was meant for us, and the French too, actually. So that's the first one there. In other words, Putin's making a threat to do something Russians have been doing for 80 years. Right? So it's not a threat, right? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, I'm going to do this if you're not careful, except I'm already doing it. I've been doing it for 80 years. Thank you, Albin, for the rose. Second point, Russia is definitely already doing this today. It's not just in history. Working closely with and providing weapons and support to terrorist groups like Hamas, the Syrians, and the Taliban. 3, Russia is losing this war and does not have the weapons to spare. They already are not able to fulfill weapons contracts to countries like India because they do not have the weapons. I was actually Googling this, and I was even reading the Russians cannot even provide the spare parts the Indians need for some of the earlier weapon systems the Indians bought from the Russians, like in 2018. They don't have the spare parts to even give the Indians to use for the Russian weapons, right? So where's Russia going to get, right? Russia is hard-pressed to win this war. They're stuck. I mean, they're doing well lately, but well means taking small towns. They're stuck. They can't win this war. Ukraine so far can't win, but the Russians can't win either. How's Russia going to start with it's the old, you and what army, right? What army does Russia plan on using to sell more weapons to Cuba or Venezuela or Syria or anybody else? Where are they going to get the weapons from, right? He says, 4, America cannot go to war with Russia because of nuclear weapons, but America can go to war with Cuba or Venezuela or any other stupid country that might be dumb enough to take Russian weapons and then attack the United States. And he's right about that. He says, what nation wants to get toppled just to do Russia a minor favor? Number 5, If the United States were to be attacked by a country that was supplied weapons by Russia, this would backfire horribly for Russia. He then talks about how George Bush, the father, the old George Bush, his approval rating shot up to 98% after September 11th, and basically says if the Kremlin wants to guarantee Biden re-election, they should give some weapons to America's enemy so that Biden basically can be the strong leader in war. Bottom line, guys, and this story is relevant not just because it's a threat Putin made and it's important for us to dismantle the threat. It's important because I hope by now some of you who are regulars who come here a lot, you've heard this story again and again, how the Russians make threats, and nearly every threat the Russians make is a bluff. I mean, typically, the only time the Russians are going to act on something is when they say they're not going to do it, right? If the Russians say they're going to nuke you, they're not going to nuke you. If the Russians say they're going to give weapons to our enemies, they're not, right? If the Russians say, oh boy, if you let Ukraine attack our territory, thank you, Joker, for the gift, it's going to be catastrophic what we do to you, it means the Russians aren't going to do anything. If the Russians say, we're not going to invade Ukraine, what do you mean? It means the Russians are going to invade Ukraine. So the only time the Russians are going to act on something generally is when they tell you they're not going to act on something. Then they will. But otherwise, it's a threat. And as I said, I tell you these stories because I think it's important because of all the crazy warmongering threats the Russians make. It's important for you to understand just how much the Russians lie about these things. And I say lie, but meaning how it's all a bluff. It is all a bluff. It just, in any case. Little more news, and then we'll go do comments and questions and all. Ukrainian drones hit an oil refinery and fuel depot in the Russian border region of Rostov. They also sank a tugboat off of Crimea. I didn't report on it because I thought it was one tugboat. Then again, a tugboat's a tugboat. You know, it all adds up in terms of ships the Russians are losing. Russian warships, this is part of the Russians being childish. Russian warships are heading to the Caribbean for military drills. This is not any big deal. It happens all the time. The U.S. is aware of it. We don't care. We're watching it. What is obnoxious about it is the Russians didn't tell us. Typically, when you hold military drills, we tell the Russians, for example, because we don't want the Russians to worry that there are, like, thank you, Joker, for the lightning bolt, that there are, hundreds of ships from NATO approaching their borders, submarines and airplanes and everything else, right? We don't want the Russians to make a mistake and think they're being attacked. So what a mature country does that isn't a B-rate, backwards, failing former superpower, former empire that doesn't amount to much anymore. What real countries do is they give a heads up because they don't want to have an accidental war. The Russians didn't tell us. They decided to move a bunch of ships into the Caribbean and do their little naval exercise so that we would worry that maybe they were attacking. Again, what does this accomplish? All it accomplishes is possibly causing a war to break out between us and the Russians, and something stupid because we're worried as to whether they're attacking. Again, it's the childishness, it's the immaturity, it's the B-rate country action. It's the actions of a country that isn't ready for prime time, right? That isn't a real developed country. It's the action of children. And I've said this before a lot. Thank you, Elisoni. It's what a 13-year-old boy would do if he was running a country. It's not what an adult would do, but this is who they are. Here's another little story I wanted to bring up because, again, this fits into a larger, I always like to bring up stories that to me fit into a larger picture possibly, okay? A Polish border guard was attacked about a week and a half ago, along the border with Belarus. Poland's a member of NATO. Belarus is a brutal dictatorship ally of Putin's in the war. Thank you, JMK, for the gift. And Russia has been sending a lot of migrants, basically, immigrants from Africa, Middle East. The Russians have been taking them and shoving them across NATO borders. So basically, literally using these people as not bombs, because they're not bombed, but using them as weapons to like throw across the border with Poland. They're doing it with Finland too. And they're basically just trying to cause social unrest because they know that illegal immigration, and frankly, any immigration nowadays potentially causes social problems in these countries, right? Thank you, Tony. Well, about a week or two ago, one of the migrants, coming via Russia into Belarus comes to the Polish border and he takes a makeshift, he made a spear with a point on the end, made a weapon out of it, almost like an arrow on the end, shoved it through the border and stabbed one of the Polish border guards. The border guard's dead. He just died in the hospital. It is quite possible that this was a Russian attack, that this was not some random guy who just wanted to immigrate to Poland. Thank you, Jay. Because these migrants have been organized by the Russians to basically flood these countries. Who knows what the truth is, right? As I always sort of like to say, I think one way of looking at it is, would Russia take a migrant and give him a weapon to kill a Polish border guard? Yes. Yes. Do we know Russia did it? No. But if you are a European country, this is what you're dealing with now. Thank you, Alexander, for the gift. You are dealing with Russia doing anything it can just short of war, right? They do, and even like this too. The Russians killed, maybe the Russians killed a Polish border guard. Are we going to nuke them? No, right? You get how like it's how and thank you, Ukrainian Lisa, for the donut, right? I mean, do you get how like it's the Russians are doing incredibly obnoxious. They're doing things that are acts of war, but they're acts of war that an intelligent, mature country would not respond with war. And that's the difference. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. The whole thing's pretty bad. In any case, final story here. It is the 1-year anniversary of the Russian attack on the Kakhovka Dam. You remember that's the dam in southern Ukraine that the Russians basically blew up. It's, I'm trying to remember. It's more or less around here. The Russians blew it up. Actually, it might have been, I don't think it was, I know it's probably about up here, actually, judging by the water. And the Russians blew it up. It flooded the entire area, caused a horrible ecological disaster, killed a lot of people, flooded a lot of homes. And what we think happened, thank you, Jay Shea, for the hearts. What we think happened was the Russians were trying to basically we think they were trying to damage the dam to freak out the Ukrainians, and the Russians being Russians. It's been a year, already. The Russians being Russians screwed it up. The bomb went off, destroyed the whole damn dam, and flooded the entire area. And by the way, it flooded a lot of Russian troops. It surely killed Russian troops as well, because this is how just, how bad they are at this. Anyway, that is it for the news today. We are going to hang out like we always do. Take your guys' questions, take your comments. Probably another half hour. That's usually the way I do this. Thank you, US user 336. We have our auction items over at Discord to benefit Ukraine. Those auctions end tomorrow night. So I will probably make a final pitch during the show tomorrow night. Colonel Mustard had suggested that I make the auctions end in the evening America time, because that way I can do a final sell to you guys during the show. So you got till tomorrow to bid. Thank you, Natitude. You got till tomorrow to bid. Basically, the auctions are cool things I get mostly from Ukraine, some from around the world when I've traveled, mostly Ukraine. And half the money gets sent back to Ukraine, either humanitarian aid. We also help the military. Half of it goes to support me because I've been doing this full time since the war broke out. So quite literally, these gifts you guys are giving in the auctions help pay my bills. So thank you for that. Thank you, JJ. Couple of the cool things we've got this time. I've shown you guys before. Thank you, Robert. Robert's our dinosaur expert who bought a dinosaur gift, but also our wonderful dinosaur expert who got me a bunch of cool dinosaur bones. Probably my favorite item is this. We are auctioning off a medium-sized men's t-shirt. When I say medium, though, it is between a medium and large American men's size. I tried this shirt on and it fit me wonderfully. I am between a medium and a large, a U.S. men's medium and large. Thank you, C. Scott. So this is between a U.S. men's medium and large. It shows Grogu. Thank you, Jimmy. Grogu, who is Baby Yoda, wearing like a Ukrainian military outfit and wearing the Ukrainian Trident military patch that we've been auctioning those off. Very cool shirt. I'm pretty sure this shirt was benefiting the Ukrainian military. Vlad bought a bunch of shirts off of, in the U.S., we might call it, I don't know if we call it a military auxiliary or what. He said it was people at a festival that were selling them, but they were quite literally selling them. He said it was the military selling them, but they get civilians to sell it, however they do it. In any case, this is a very cool shirt. I know, Martin, if I win it, I'm keeping it. It's okay, Martin. I don't mind. I'm going to try to have Vlad get me more. This is the last Grogu shirt we have. I was like, once I saw this shirt, I was like, Vlad, why did you, I said, are you insane? Why did you not buy more of those? And he said, there were only 2 because they bought them out. A couple other things. My other favorite item of this week's auction, by the way, I should tell people, and by the way, mods, maybe you can also repeat to people how to find Discord. Our Discord community where the auctions are is free to go to. You can find the Discord link on YouTube. Go to the description of the show and look for the link that says Linktree. Click it, and the top link is Discord. For you guys on TikTok, go to my profile on TikTok. Look for the Linktree link, which is the URL there. Click it. And the very first thing is Discord. I did change the link because some of you complained the link wasn't working. Syndicate very generously changed the link for us, so the link should work. Thank you, Marilyn. I appreciate the compliment. This is the other item I think is cool as all get out. This is a Ukrainian coffee mug. It says Ceramics of Ukraine on the bottom. And it is a Ukrainian coffee mug dedicated to the Russian ship, the Moskva. The Moskva is the ship that the Ukrainians sank 6 weeks into the war. It was the flagship of the Russian fleet. But what really makes it famous is this is the ship that told the Ukrainians on Snake Island, Ukrainian troops on Snake Island, this is Russian warship, surrender or you will be destroyed. And the Ukrainians turned around and said, Russian warship, this is by the way, what they said in Russian, Russian warship, go yourself, go F yourself, except they didn't say F. It is written here in, Ruski Voyni, or what is it? I will never get this perfect. Ruski, I could do Voyni, Ruski Voyni, Koral, Itzi Nahui. Russian warship, go F yourself. Became super famous. I love this mug. I mean, this mug is probably the coolest mug we've had. Very cool. In any case, Vlad got this in Ukraine. This is the other really cool gift. The other final one I will show you. We got a number of cool things. The other neat thing is this pin. We got like 10 items, but I'm only showing you 3 of them. It's just hard to pronounce because it's like voyni. Oh my God. Because it's the V-O-E that's confusing me a little. Voyni. It's Voyni. It is Voyni. Okay, Voyni. Okay, I'm going to say Voyni. The rest of it I can pronounce, but the Voyni is hard. This is very cool. We're auctioning this off as well. It is a pin. It is in the shape of a home. The home is shattered. You can see each pin is unique because they're all made by hand. And then it has a Ukrainian heart on it with Ukrainian colors, blue and yellow or blue and gold, the colors of the Ukrainian flag. This pin, it's got 2 little pins on the back. You can see the size of it if I put it here. It's a nice sized pin. This was made by a Ukrainian charity. Each pin that was sold, we bought the pins and then had to ship them. They were not cheap. We bought them and had to ship them here. Each pin, by buying this pin, it paid for therapy for one Ukrainian child suffering from the war. So it's really a neat a backstory to the pin as well. I just kind of, and it's neat. I mean, it's just, and I like that sort of, it's the broken home idea, like the home is shattered, but the Ukrainian heart goes on. And the fact that this pin itself was able to buy therapy for one Ukrainian child. Anyway, I just think it's really sweet. So we're auctioning this guy off too. There's 7 other items. I won't waste your time showing you the other items, but do go check them out. They're over on Discord, as I said, and the mods can tell you one more time how to find our auctions on Discord. Do check them out. Okay. Yes, 1 letter, 1 sound isn't the problem, TKO. The problem is in English. We don't really put those sounds together. So Voeynee, like voye is a weird sound in American English, probably British English too. It's just not easy to pronounce. That's my problem. I can read it because I studied Russian for a year. It's just hard to put the Voeynee. I'm going to stick with that. So, and of course the double E's are fun too. Ukrainian and Russian have these like 2 E's in a row. So it's like E. And at least in Russian, you get like E, which I don't think the Ukrainian's a little different. Cause I remember doing the E once and Vlad was like, we don't do that. We just say E. I don't know if Yulia's still here to tell us or any of the other folks who speak Ukrainian, but I don't know if you guys still do the like Bila that the Russians would say. Whether you guys, I think Vlad said you guys would say Bila. You wouldn't say Bila, right? Because in Russian, you'd go be like the uy. It's a funny sound. Uy. It's this like bi kind of sound. Yeah. Anyway. Anyway. All right. Alexa, lower the temperature 1 degree. It's getting a little warm in here.
The AC is set to 75.
Discord is basically a chat community. It's not easy, unfortunately. If you haven't used it before, it's not easy. But nonetheless, it is a chat community. And once you go there, if you can figure it out, it's free. But if you can go there and figure it out, you sign the little thing we make you sign that says, I'm not a troll. It lets you in. And then if you look in the left, you'll see the auctions. But as I said, Discord is not always the easiest to navigate. So sorry for that. Miracle cure for poison ivy? I do not. I don't know if anybody else does. Yes, but of course, Voyagny or whatever, which I hadn't thought about it, but the Ukrainians spoke Russian to the Russian ship because it was a Russian ship. And they were telling him, Russian ship, go F yourself. So, of course, they told him in Russian so they'd understand, which makes, at first I was thinking, why is it in Russian? But it makes total sense why it's in Russian, right? Anyway, all right. Yeah, folks can maybe help some of the people out in the comments on Discord. That's not a bad idea. So, anyway, that's a big question. Are Russian and Ukrainian similar? I will tell you, having studied Russian, I find Ukrainian very different. It's confusingly different. I tried studying Ukrainian, like using Duolingo, and it confused the hell out of me. I thought it was going to be much closer. Too many words are different, but there's a lot of words that are the same. But too many words are different for my taste. So I would say Russian and Ukrainian to me are very different, but Ukrainians and Russians, you guys can understand each other. You can understand each other to a degree, right? Depending. I mean, to a degree. Well, let me phrase this. A Ukrainian who has had no experience with the Russian language, will you understand a Russian? A Russian who has no experience with the Ukrainian language, will they understand a Ukrainian? Yulia says 60 to 80% syntax similar. Okay. As a foreigner, the language was so different that I found Ukrainian very difficult. Whereas, like on Duolingo, I started looking at Russian again, and it was not easy, but I mean, it was easy, so to speak. Ukrainian, I was going, oh my God, help me. Every word was different, So, interesting. Russian and Polish, so you understand Ukrainian 95%. That's good. All right. Maybe that, I'm sure the grammar's the same. That I assume. Yeah, Joshua. Yeah. There you go. Alexander, that was my question. Alexander says, we can understand Russians because we know Russian. They cannot understand Ukrainian. That was my question. I was curious, like Ukrainians who literally don't know a word of Russian, although maybe there aren't any of you, would they understand Russian? That was sort of my question. Yeah, because most of you guys, you've got Russians, even out west, although out west is not really many Russian speakers. Like a Ukrainian growing up in Lviv or growing up, where Vlad is in Uzhgorod, would they grow up hearing Russian or not really because they're in southwestern Ukraine? You know what I mean? Thank you, Christine. You studied Russian for 8 years. You poor soul. I studied it for 1 year and found it really, really hard. I was terrible at it. Christine, thank you for the shiny air balloon. I am interested in the rocket launches. I just don't know much about them. I know there was the delayed one that I think went off, and there was another one today or whatever. I just don't know. Like one Boeing or something. I'm not really Starlink, Starlight maybe. I'm not really up on the launches that just happened. I know they went well, which is great. There was like an unmanned one, I think, that went today, but I was busy working and I kind of missed the details of, usually I love watching launches, space launches. We just had a couple, I guess. Boeing, was there 2 though? I thought there might've been 2. Alexander says, if Ukrainians don't know Russian, they will hardly understand Russian with a lot of confusion. That was my question. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Alexander. That's what I was assuming. Only because for me as an American, I mean, I only have a year of Russian, but I've got a lot of vocabulary. Ukrainian was just, bleh. Like I'll look at Russian and at least I'll be able to pick out words. Sometimes I can understand a sentence randomly. I look at Ukrainian and I'm like, screw it. It just, I can't pick things out occasionally. And the other thing with Ukrainian I find, which is hard for me at least, when Russians speak I can hear what they're saying even if I don't understand it. When Ukrainians speak, I have a much harder time picking out words. It's harder for me to hear the words even for whatever reason. Anyway, beep, 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 beep. Can a country join the European Union while at war? That's a good question for the EU. I doubt the EU has as many issues about that as NATO does. NATO doesn't really want you joining while you're at war because we don't want to invite you in and then we go to war, right? Because then we're defending you. The European Union doesn't really have a military side to it. Like, I'm not the expert on this. I know there kind of is, but there isn't at the same time. It's not like the EU goes to war when one EU member gets attackkt, right? So I don't know whether the EU is going to have, okay, Goethe Selfs is saying fewer issues, but still some issues. So the EU would still have some issues with it. I will say this, my guess from the European Union would be, it probably partially depends why you're at war. Meaning, if you're totally innocent, they might be more sympathetic than if you were one of the belligerents, because they don't want to be letting in countries, NATO too, you kind of want to let in countries that have reached a certain level of maturity, right? Where they don't just invade their neighbors, blah, 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 right? Only go to your videos, but you're right here. I don't know what you, on TikTok? I can't tell you, Cliff. Cliff is having a hard time getting into TikTok live. Close the TikTok app and go back. Sometimes it doesn't show the person live until you like literally close the app out entirely, you know, like on a phone or on your phone, you literally swipe it and make it closed and then start it again. And then you can see the person live. But people have told me that before, that they really couldn't see that you're live unless they close the app first. Is most of the European Union in NATO? I would say most, yes, but I don't know the overlap. That's a good question. That's a good question. The Brits are not part of the EU anymore. The Swedes confuse me because you get the weird thing with the currency that gets confusing because a number like the Swedes don't use the currency. Thank you for the balloons, whoever did that on YouTube. Ireland is not, but is Ireland in the EU? Ireland is not a member of NATO, but it can, and Ireland, honestly, Ireland plays games because Ireland is a freeloader, you say in economics, where basically they're not a member of NATO, but they expect NATO to defend them, and NATO does defend them. The Russians were screwing around Ireland just in the last week. NATO troops went, boats from NATO countries, ships went to protect the Irish. Thank you, Katrine, for the heart. Austria, is Austria part of the EU? Austria is not in NATO, but is in the EU. Okay. So you've got a ton of overlap, yes. Okay, Ireland is EU, okay. Denmark's not using the euro either. Okay. But they're EU, right? And Sweden is EU as well, but not, no, is Sweden EU? Because I thought Sweden wasn't part of Schengen either, right? Is Sweden not even part of I thought Sweden was EU. Sweden confuses me. Sweden's EU, but is Sweden part of Schengen? Because I remember going to Sweden and having to like check out of Schengen when I was going to Sweden. It confuses me. Austria, Cyprus, Ireland, and Malta aren't members of NATO. Okay. Sweden is Schengen. Okay. It was confusing, whatever I was doing. Anyway. What else we got, guys? Thank you, Olson, for the gift. Sweden, Norway, and Finland are part of Schengen, and Denmark too, I'm assuming. Right. Okay. So there's mostly overlap, but a few countries are in one and not the other. Actually, let's put it this way. Are there any NATO countries that aren't EU? Like, are all the Baltics that are NATO, are they all EU, for example? That's an interesting question. NATO countries that are not EU. Okay, Canada, of course, Canada. Yeah, I know that. Canada and America, of course. But I mean, of the European countries. Turkey, correct, right? Which Albania? I was saying, like, which NATO countries are not EU? Which European NATO countries? Norway is not EU? Is that true? I didn't realize that. I did not realize that. Okay. Interesting. That's interesting. Interesting. Okay. Although Norway, in a way, I'm not surprised because they've got the money now. They may not want to, F around with the EU. I mean, they certainly wouldn't want a common currency, I would think. Greenland has a funny connection to Denmark, as I recall, right? They're independent, but they're some weird relationship with Denmark, as I recall, Greenland. If somebody can put it in better words than I'm putting, my words are kind of bad. They're a colony. They're not a colony. I mean, I wouldn't call them a colony now, no. But it's Danish, but are they not independent as well or not? Or are they considered like an independent territory of Denmark? Or is it literally like another autonomous dominion? That's what I mean. It's kind of autonomous, but it's Danish, right? So it still is Danish, but it's self-governing. Okay. Like an independent territory. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. I learned all about that watching Borgen. My friend Marion, who joins us a lot on YouTube, on TikTok, on YouTube to sort of watch the show with us, who went with me to Russia and the Soviet Union, or to Russia. Marion turned me on to Borgen. It's a really good, I don't know if it's on Amazon or Netflix, but it's a really good Danish political show that is very much like American politics. It's very interesting. It's a wonderful show. Very, very impressive. Very impressive. Boy, Deb, I got to tell you, the auto mute loves you. It keeps muting your comments. I just unmuted you. TikTok's auto mute feature does not like Deb. Borgen's very good. Really good. I will continue to do lives when the war is over. I'm not convinced that's happening anytime soon, Jackson. But yeah, I mean, I would switch over to other news, which gets riskier because, like, even as the U.S. election comes closer, we really don't have a choice but to talk about the election. And people are going to get mad. You know what I mean? I mean, as I said, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. Not only am I not a fan of Donald Trump, I'm a big fan of democracy and I'm a big fan of history. And we have learned the lessons of history that you've got to speak out against evil. And otherwise bad things happen and I'm not willing to watch our democracy float away. So it's going to make a lot of people be pissed off, but what do you do? NATO has 32 countries right now, actually, Joe, because now you've got Sweden and Finland. So now it's 32. It was 30. And counting, exactly. Exactly. Thank you, Lamb Chop. Anyway, Trump tried to buy Greenland. That's right. Remember that? He was going to buy. What was it? I mean, are there minerals in Greenland? What kind of crazy stuff was he talking about that? No, that's ridiculous about Biden. I mean, the Trump trolls do this. And, yeah, what? I'm not even going to answer the Trump trolls. Just start supporting democracy. Stop supporting, a man who hates the country. By the way, it's D-Day. Important to remind people. Thank you, Pam Pam. Donald Trump refused to visit American military cemeteries in France when he was there because he said that our troops that were prisoners of war and killed in action were suckers and losers for getting caught and killed by the Germans, the Germans in both wars, and he refused to visit them. Also, it was raining one of the days and Trump didn't want to get his hair wet. We know this because Trump's own White House chief of staff, the Republican that Trump hired to run the White House, went public and told people about just how bad Trump was. Yeah. So, again, I will keep repeating it until the cows come home. People need to know the truth about the man. And I love when they say it's a lie too. It's like all of Trump picked all these people as his top staff who are all liars. Then why did he pick them? Because like all of them are saying the same story. So, at some point, you got to admit that he's a bad man. Hello, dog. Okay. Sasha's not loving the fact that it was drizzling earlier. This is kind of like, I just bought Sasha a pride collar. She has her first rainbow collar ever. Kind of exciting. Thank you, Alexander, for the dancing flower. I love that gift. I think it's so cool. And thank you, Israeli person, for following me. I will never be able to. Well, I can't read Israeli or Hebrew. Hebrew. So, but thank you for following me. I can at least tell your alphabet. Anyway, oil reserves on Greenland. Oh, that's why. Okay. I do like feta a lot. Yes, I like feta. And I like cooking with it. You can make a lot of, you want to come back in? You are very unhappy. I can see that. My dog keeps going in and out because she's just kind of freaked out. She could tell it was going to rain. My dog has like psychic. She can tell when it's going to rain, and she hates rain because it reminds, she knows sometimes it thunders. So she was panicked about 3 hours ago. No rain in the forecast. Thank God I give her a little bit of a pill for it to calm her down. It rained during the show because, of course, my dog is psychic. So, so the poor thing. But yes. So I just got her for her first rainbow collar that we've never had before. I don't know why. I just never, every year at Pride, and in America, Pride, like Gay Pride, LGBT Pride is June. So like you start to see dogs with the collars and stuff, and I've never done it. So finally I did it. Woo woo. Anyway, so yes, thank you, Aussie, for the flag on YouTube. But I do love feta. Yeah. You make a lot of good. There's a lot of good. There's actually a really nice dish we make, Greeks, called shrimp turco limono, where basically it's kind of easy. You can take, thank you, Flower Lady. Oh, very, very good timing with the rainbow. Exactly. The gay rainbow. It's a really nice dish where basically and it's kind of easy. I do a very simple version. You can serve it on rice. You could even serve it on pasta, but basically you could make rice separately, get a good tomato sauce. I would say, you could use a spaghetti sauce. I would like something a little more tomatoey, but you could use a spaghetti sauce that you like, put it on the pasta or put it on rice. Put shrimp in there that are cooked, right? So you just put 6 or 7 shrimp and then sprinkle it with feta cheese. Put it in the microwave so that it's hot, or however you want to heat it. But you want all of it to come together hot. The feta starts to melt, and the combination of the melted feta cheese with the shrimp, with the tomato, typically Greeks would eat it on rice, but it's very good on pasta as well. Oh my God. It's so good. And the Greeks would literally make the tomato sauce from scratch. The shrimp go in the tomato sauce. The feta, I'm Greek. Yep. The feta goes in the sauce. You put the sauce in the oven for 20 minutes. I mean, it's very complicated. You could literally do it by just throwing the different parts together in a bowl and put it in a microwave. It's really good. I haven't had that in a while. I need to make that. Emily, you should not be scared. Why are you scared? You should not be scared. No. The Russians aren't going to do anything. Just not going to do anything. I do the news recap. Yes, we do the news recap at the end. Sometimes I don't when the show goes too long and I'm tired, but I can do one tonight. We're not going to do it yet, but at the very end, I'll do the recap just to sort of tell you guys what we talked about today. But since you asked, I will before we say goodbye, but we'll go for another, maybe another 8 or 10 minutes. We can wait see if people have more stuff they want to talk about. But yeah, this is the part of the show where we hang out and we talk. So first part of the show, I sort of go through the news items that I think are important to talk about. And this is the part where we hang out. Excuse me. Mike says, Greenland's west coast alone is estimated to contain about 18 billion barrels of oil. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. That's also another reason why Denmark wouldn't want to get rid of Greenland, I would suspect, right? Might Putin let off a nuke in Siberia? I don't know. I would find that kind of funny if he did. I mean, bottom line, if Vladimir Putin wants to nuke his own country, I mean, okay. You know what I mean? Like, that does not scare me. Right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, why would that scare you? He wants to blow up a nuke on his own country and make his own country radioactive. Like, okay, it's kind of stupid, but right. Who cares? I mean, it's a nuclear test. We've done nuclear tests since the 1950s. I mean, we haven't done a lot in years because we've had like a test ban treaty, but they're nuclear tests. Who cares? Seriously, I mean, who cares? It's a nuclear test. I don't care. Nothing's scared about it. What's the beep. Oh, saganaki. Saganaki is not made from feta. It's made from, it might be kefalotiri. I'm trying to remember if it's kefalotiri, what saganaki is made, but it's not feta. No, it's a harder cheese that you then cook in the oven and it becomes soft, but it's a much harder cheese. The texture isn't like Parmesan, but it's the firmness of Parmesan, except the cheese is actually more rubbery. Maybe Swiss cheese, Emmental, but it's not Emmental, but I mean that kind of texture, like an Emmental texture maybe. But it's not feta. No. Thank you, Tony, for the paper crane. That's the cheese that's flamed, exactly. Is saganaki. You could Google it. I'll bet you it's kefalotiri. I think. I'm not sure if I remember. I know, Anders, I see you answering this before. Baltic countries are a weak spot for NATO. In some ways, yes. Meaning, let me grab Ava's map. Wonderful Ava Wahlberg, who's our I am not fluent in Greek. I used to be fluent in Greek. Now my Greek is, Tora otan milau ilinikaine etsiketsi. Catalaveno archeta extratate ala, in etsiketsi. My Greek is, is so-so. It used to be fluent. It says kefalotiri graviera or kefalo graviera. Kaseri. Kaseri is the one. Yes. Kaseri is the one that typically I would associate with saganaki, which is the flaming cheese. Correct. Kaseri is the typical one that I would know of. So here's the concern. All right, let's look at our map here, okay? Ava made this wonderful map for us. This is Russia. These are the Ukraine's down here. Belarus, Russian satellite dictatorship. The Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. These were part of the Soviet Union. They are now free. Finland up here, Poland, Romania, Germany over here. These guys, the Russians would like very much to steal a chunk of territory between Lithuania and Poland. So they've already got Belarus. I mean, Belarus is a puppet of Russia now, okay? You come here over to Belarus, and you got Poland, you got Lithuania. There's something else really special around here. If you look over, Ava put a little green dot right here. Let me see if I can. I don't have my pointer. I mean, I do have my pointer. My mom gave me a really nice pointer. You've got a little green dot right here between Lithuania and Poland. This little green dot is a little bit of Russia that is stuck in the middle of Europe. The Russians stole it after World War II, and hopefully someday it comes back to Europe again. It's Kaliningrad, and it's a little Russian territory tucked in the middle here. The Russians would love to have a land corridor to their little territory they stole after World War II. The Russians want to steal a bit of land here in southern Lithuania and northern Poland. As folks are writing on TikTok, it's called the Suwalki. I guess in English, I'm used to seeing it as Suwalki Gap, but maybe the W is a V, not surprisingly, Suwalki Gap. And the concern is going through Belarus, which is already a Russian puppet, that the Russians go and grab this land. And they've now got a land connection to Kaliningrad. Well, the Russians grab this land, and then what happens? The Russians maybe could grab it, right? If they did a big push, maybe they could grab it. What if the Russians grab it and say, okay, war's over. We grabbed the little bit of land. No more. We're not fighting anymore. Are we going to nuke them? Right? I mean, we could try to grab the land back. I mean, the concern becomes, it's like Valenza or Valenza. Like Valenza, exactly. The Polish W is a V. That's the concern, basically, that the Russians come in and take the land and then say, okay, we're done. Yeah, Königsberg, that's right. We call it Königsberg. And take the land and then say, okay, we're done. NATO, you really want to go to war? You really want to risk nuclear war over this little bit of land in Lithuania and Poland? It becomes an issue. Same thing with Estonia. I was talking about this the other day. You guys were telling me the name of the town, and I'm forgetting it again. Did it start with a G, maybe? Was it in eastern Estonia, a Russian-speaking town? We're very Russian-speaking, like they're kind of Russian. They aren't even learning Estonian, but it's very eastern Estonia over by Russia, like a GR something maybe? Or Narva. I keep thinking it's a G. Narva is a town, I think. Yeah, Pedro. Narva. And I was reading about the other day. The concern is the Russians go and invade. They take the little bit of Estonia, the town, and they say, we were invading to protect our Russian nationals, because just like Hitler did in World War II, he invaded his neighbors to protect the Germans. This was the argument, right? And they're Russian, ethnic Russians, and you're abusing them. We're going to come and liberate them. Well, Putin invades, takes the little town on the Estonian border and says, okay, we're done. No more war. Are we going to nuke him? Are we going to go to war over that? Maybe. I mean, we're supposed to because of NATO, but is Donald Trump going to go to war over a little Estonian town with Russia? I don't think so. Are MAGA Republicans in Congress going to let Biden go to war over a little town in Estonia? I doubt it. Donald Trump will tell them no. That's when things get really dangerous. The concern is that it would be at least before the war, before the Ukraine war, I was told by a former European defense minister right before the war, that it would be very easy for the Russians to take the Baltic states. NATO would then have to take them back. And the concern is it could be very difficult to take them back. It would be very bloody and a lot of stuff. So somebody was asking whether the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, are NATO's weak spot. I don't know if it's the weak spot. The concern is it's the hot spot. It's one of the areas there in the area that Russia could go after. And Russia could go after it because they want it, but also thinking, oh, if we do that, what are you doing, Sash? If we do that, NATO won't have the balls to basically start a war. I did see Cliff, your super chat. I was in the middle of talking. Were you encouraged by Biden at D-Day over Ukraine remarks? Yes. Biden gave very good remarks about Ukraine at the D-Day commemoration today in Normandy in northern France. I started the show sort of talking about his comments. They were very strong. He talked about Putin being a dictator. He talked about how if Russia wins the war in Ukraine, Putin's going to go after Europe next. Those are very strong words. I hope Biden holds to those words. Sometimes I think Biden says things and then backs off, but he was very good. I will say this too, though. Biden needs to he hasn't given that speech in months. The last time he gave a speech like that I can recall was the State of the Union in March, early March. So you had all of March, April, May, and June. You had 4 months until he gave an equally strong speech. He needs to give a speech like that all the time. And this is something I've said that Donald Trump is very good at. Donald Trump is very good at messaging. He knows how to message. Doesn't matter what you think of him as a human being. It doesn't matter what you think his message is, good or bad. He's good at it. I'm good at messaging, actually. It's one of the things that I've been very good at the last 30, 40 years of my work experience. In order to message well, you got to do a few things. You've got to keep the message simple. Typically, you've got to keep it to like 2 or 3 talking points. Like when you go on TV, for example, when you go on television, they tell you have 2 or 3 talking points in your mind. And no matter what the question, always come back to those 2 or 3 points. That's the first thing. Second of all, you want the points to be very quick and very easy to explain. If you're explaining, well, blah, 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 it's too confusing. You want to be boom, boom, boom. This is my talking point, right? Third, it doesn't hurt for it to be kind of catchy. Build the wall, right? Build the wall, right? Biden crime family, crooked Hillary, right? I mean, Trump is very good at coming up with names for people and expressions that stick in your head. Again, whether it's good or bad, they stick in your head. And the final thing Trump does is you will see him do this. And he especially does it with his lies. He says them again and again and again and again and again. Trump, when caught in a lie, doubles down and tells the lie 10 more times that day. And he does it every day hence. It works for a lie. It also works for the truth. Lock her up for Hillary Clinton, exactly. But it works for the truth as well. If you've got to repeat it again and again and again and again so it sticks in people's mind. And Biden hasn't been doing that with Ukraine. Biden let Ukraine go off the radar. Americans don't think about Ukraine anymore. Biden doesn't talk about it. Our leaders don't talk about it. So what happens? They just think it doesn't matter or it's a lost cause or whatever. The other problem is Biden has never consistently explained to the American people why Ukraine matters. Sometimes he does. Today he did. Well, today he said there could be war in Europe. He needs to explain that more, to be honest, because I don't think a lot of Americans believe there will be war in Europe if Ukraine loses, right? I think there might be. But you need to explain that. And Biden's just very bad at that. And Democrats overall are very bad at that. They're historically Democrats. I don't know if it's the left in the world overall, but Democrats who are the left in America, it's almost like they think that their message is so good that they don't need to explain it, right? Like, I don't need to prove to you why Obama was this way many times. Like, he didn't have to prove to us his message because his message was so good it would sell itself. Democrats think, but I'm fighting the good fight. I'm proposing really good programs that people are going to want. I don't need to sell them. Yes, you do have to sell them. You do have to sell them. Democrats are not the far right in Europe, not even close. That's not even close. Not even close. Democrats might be like social democrats now, maybe. In Europe, but the far right, Republicans are the far right in Europe now. Absolutely, positively. Are you kidding? Hungary, Le Pen, Trump, in many different ways, but they're all connected. I would call them the far right in Europe. I assume that's who you're talking about. Democrats are not the far left in Europe. That's not the case there. But Democrats are not the far right. No, Farage is another one. Yeah. I don't think in any country. What country are you in? I can't imagine in any country in Europe, Democrats would be the far right, unless you've got some country that is just socialist left and literally there's no right wing at all. then maybe Democrats are the right in your country. Fair enough. But your country's got to be really to the left. You know what I mean? Well, Finland. Well, no, he's saying in Finland, though, or she's saying in Finland. I don't know. In Finland, are there any right-wing groups to the right of Democrats or not really? I mean, that are real. Maybe there aren't. Maybe there just aren't any right-wing groups at all in Finland. I don't know. That's a different story. Yeah. So she or he isn't saying Democrats are far right. She was actually trying to say, or he was trying to say in Finland, the parties are all pretty much to the left, so that even Democrats would be considered to the right, which maybe is a fair point. Fair enough. I see what you're saying, though. Yeah. I thought you were saying Democrats were akin to Orban and Marine Le Pen. That's what I thought. I was like, no, we're not that. You know, that's a different thing. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Anyway, Democrats are like British Tories. I don't know enough about the Tories, but I suspect Democrats are to the left of Tories. Certainly Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher was Republican in America. She wouldn't be a Democrat, but that was many years ago now, you know. But I would think Democrats would be to the right of Labour and to the left of Tories in the UK. I'd be pretty, without, you know, your guys, I don't follow your guys' politics enough, but from what I follow, I watched Labour and I kind of go, you're a little too much for me. And then I see Tories and I go, you're a little too much for me. Like, I feel like I'm between the two, you know, right of center in Germany, maybe, Zerpachi says, for Dems. Dems are somehow less incompetent than the Tories. That's funny. That's interesting too. Mark says Democrats assume people are smarter than they really are. That's an interesting point. That's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah. I saw a woman quoted yesterday. This was hilarious. God, I want to see if I can find this. Hold on. I think I retweeted. I was going to retweet this. I may not have. Shoot. I meant to retweet it. Let me look. I'm going to do a quick look on Twitter because it was just sort of classic. My dog, go on again. My dog keeps coming in and out because she's freaked out about the weather and she thinks if she steps outside, she'll feel better. Except if she goes outside, she'll actually smell the weather. Give me a second. If I can find this tweet. Otherwise, I'm going to summarize the tweet for you from, it was a news report interviewing voters about like their feelings about Biden. And this woman was sort of classic for like a Democratic voter. Otherwise, I remember enough that I can paraphrase it for you. Oh, come on, Twitter. I hate this how Twitter does this. Shit. Okay, so I'm not going to come up. Basically, the woman says, I voted for Joe Biden in 2020, but I'm not going to vote for him in 2024 because he didn't do enough to protect a woman's right to an abortion when the Supreme Court basically threw out the women's right to an abortion in America. Now, the Supreme Court, the U.S., the top court in America, threw out a women's right to an abortion because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump came to office and said, I am going to kill the right to abortion in America. I'm going to get it banned because that's what Republicans are announced from the beginning. He then appointed multiple members of the Supreme Court, some of which the Republicans literally stole. They stole at least one of the seats. Actually, they stole a seat from Obama before, literally. But he gets 3 seats on the Supreme Court. And the Trump judges on the Supreme Court strike down abortion. So there's no longer a right to an abortion in America. This idiot woman who votes for Biden in 2020 says today she's not going to vote for Biden because she blames him for the Supreme Court striking down a woman's right to abortion. Again, it was Donald Trump. It wasn't Joe Biden. And if she gets Donald Trump elected, he's going to put more judges on that court and she's going to lose the right to contraception as well. I mean, but this is the kind of idiots we're dealing with. And I saw there was a poll that said something like 20% of Biden voters blame him for the Supreme Court getting rid of abortion. And it was like, no, but people are stupid. I mean, you can't sort of underestimate the stupidity of people, I think, to some degree. It's really sad, but it's true. You know? So, but just kind of a bit. But I also think she may be lying too. I mean, she also claimed, and I love this, she's some woman from like rural Pennsylvania or something. She claimed she's voting on Gaza and abortion. And I'm reading this going, sure you are. First of all, There are very few Americans voting on Gaza. Very few people. The far left is upset about, not far left, upset. A lot of you are upset about it. Most people are not voting on it. Gaza is at the bottom of the list for Democrats in terms of voting. All the polls show it. A lot of Democrats care about Gaza, but it's on the bottom of their list of things they care about. And everything else is way more important. There is no way this woman is voting on abortion, and she blames Biden for the Republicans killing the right to abortion and Gaza. I'm just like, bullshit. I think she's a Trump voter. I think for whatever reason she voted for Biden because she screwed up or whatever, and she's a Trump voter and she's making excuses. But nonetheless, you got like 20% of them that are saying this stuff. Thank you, Felice. Appreciate it. Noting my haircut. Anyway, it's crazy. Yes, I did talk about Annie. I talked about the fact that the Russians are having a war game off of Cuba and the Caribbean, and they didn't bother telling the Americans because they thought it might be fun to provoke a war with the U.S., which is something a very immature country does. A real country doesn't do. Second-rate country does. Real countries don't. Anyway, I think I'm going to do, you know what? I'll do the summary now because we've been going an hour and 40 minutes. Let me do the news summary, guys, and then we'll call it quits for tonight. Today is Thursday. I think she's lying too, Tiff. Today's Thursday, which means Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time US. We've got our coffee talk, which I do for the monthly subscribers. Any of you guys who are monthly subscribers on TikTok or YouTube, on YouTube, it's everybody who's got their name in green. You can see John Piper or Pieper, Emil, Gunther, Paul, Jens, a number of you guys, all of you guys. And on TikTok, although TikTok, a lot of you disappeared. What happened to all the gifters on TikTok? I mean, not the gifters, all the subscribers on TikTok. I'm seeing Alan. I'm not seeing a lot of you today. I've got Alan, James, Erpachi. I'm scrolling up here. Louisa, Paul. Anyway, a number of you guys. Sunshine. All of those guys on TikTok that have the brown SNN next to the name are the monthly subscribers on TikTok. And I do oh, there you are. Okay, more of you probably. Derek's popping in now. Thank you, Derek. And thank you, PC Noel, for the rose. I do a Saturday show every Saturday, more or less every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern time US. That's Washington, D.C. or New York City time. And we hang out and talk, and it's nice. It's a nice hangout where basically I don't cover the news. It's literally us. It's just us. So on TikTok, there's maybe 60 to 100 people max. On YouTube, it's maybe 5 to 10. On Discord, it's maybe 10. And it's a nice small group, and we're able to talk much more easily because it's not the larger group. So it's a nice way to basically spend an hour talking to me. You know, I get to sort of see, I get to actually see your comments and questions. And it's just, because there's so many of you here that it's hard to sort of answer everything. Thank you, Beaches, for the gift. Anyway, check it out. Check it out. Thank you. And Tiff just subscribed. Thank you, Tiff. That was sweet of you. I appreciate that. Subscription should not. Okay, let me ask you. So there should be 2 subscriptions. Is it showing both, Russell? It better be showing both. It should be showing a $6.99 subscription and a $24.99. The $24.99 was like a new one just for anybody who wanted to go wild. It better be showing you $6.99 as well. Ash, some of you guys look just to make sure for me. Well, okay, $9.59 is because you're doing it on the on your phone. Thank you, Nicholas. We should have told people this. If you do it on your computer, in principle, it should show $6.99. If you do it on your iPhone, it might show you $9.99 or something else. Now, Mustard, you and Tiff, what are you using to actually access TikTok? I'm curious. Are you using your phone? If so, what kind of phone? Just kind of curious. But yeah, Apple gets a bite when you do it via your phone, typically. Samsung, Android. But that's Samsung. That's Samsung. Android is showing $24.99, but it's not showing $6.99. There should be a $6.99 too. Google showing $6.99. Yeah, you should have both. $8.59 and $9.59. Who the hell knows? Who knows? Yeah, well, TikTok is a technological enigma to me. and absolutely admit TikTok has lots of issues, sadly. Yeah, Android showing $6.99. It should show $6.99. $24.99 was a new one I set up, and I'm trying to, let's see if it works. I'm trying to set up the $24.99 because there's like an extra show we do once a month for the $24.99s on YouTube and Discord. Swedish Candy is good. I'm holding off till tomorrow. Damien and I are going to do another installment tomorrow. But I'm trying to hold off because it's too much candy. I can't eat Swedish candy every day. Like, I'm going to gain weight, and I'm trying not to gain weight. So we will do another installment with Damien tomorrow of the Swedish candy. So, can I help a soldier in Ukraine from America? I don't know what that means. Well, I will tell you the last little question from Bacon was Congress was going to ban TikTok. What they're doing is they passed a law that basically forces TikTok to sell itself away from the Chinese company that owns them currently. They have until like the new year or something like that. And if they don't sell TikTok by then, it will be banned in the App Store, the Apple and the Google app stores. So that's what the deal is. So, yeah, I know nothing about North Korea. I would think if there's anything going on with North Korea, you'd know. So unless you're seeing it, anything credible about North Korea, you're going to see in all the top papers. So I wouldn't worry about it. Just looking right now. But it would be all over the news if anything weird was going on with North Korea. So I wouldn't worry. I mean, I'm looking now and not seeing it. So, like I said, it'll be all the news if there were something. Yep. Not seeing anything. All right. Let me do a quick, is there a website to help with Ukraine? I'm not sure what to tell you right now with that. There are a number of groups that help. That's crazy, Deb. What are you using? To see that the only option is $24.99? That's crazy. $24.99 is the fun, the new haircut. Yeah. Hey, Tumba in Sweden. What are you guys using to access my show on TikTok that's showing you only $24.99? Samsung Android. Are all of you that are only getting $24.99 on Samsung Androids? So it's a Samsung issue. Unbelievable. God only knows why it would be showing that on Samsung. I'm telling you, TikTok has a really weird tech problem, and I don't know what it is. For example, the TikTok connection with Discord doesn't work. We've got like a VIP auction section that folks that subscribe on other services can access, but on TikTok you can't because it's broken and TikTok won't fix it. But other ones are saying it's working on Samsung. Who knows, guys? Okay, no idea. All right. Very weird. Very weird. All right, guys, I'm going to do the quick summary of the news and then go because it's getting a little late here. All right. France is sending Mirage fighter jets to Ukraine. The first one should arrive by the end of the year. How is Ukraine going to use them? The French have said they're not going to put limits on the distance that they can be used. Simply, the Ukrainians need to use them against sites or objects that are being used to attack Ukraine. I then talked about why France was becoming such a hawk, and I think it's because of a story earlier in the year where basically the Russians thought it would be cute to threaten to assassinate the president of France, and I think Macron wasn't very happy about that. This was according to an article in Le Monde. And I think that finally changed his mindset on the Russians. Hello, what are you doing? I'll play with you in a second. My dog's getting into the play. She's over the freak out about the storm, and now she's in the play mood where they do kind of a ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, where they move their feet really fast, like a play. And she wants to play. So we'll do that in a moment. Politico, a French citizen has been detained in Russia on suspicion of collecting information on military activities. I think that's the Russians taking a Frenchman hostage because now they're doing to the French what they do to us because they're pissed at France. The trial of a U.S. soldier accused of stealing from his former Russian girlfriend is underway in Russia's Far East. He could get up to 5 years in prison. Another kidnappee. Today was the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Thank you, Kronos. Zelensky was there. Biden was there. Great day. Sasha, give me a minute. I'll get you water. Biden gave a good speech saying Ukraine was fighting a tyrant bent on domination. My dog is getting whiny. Just wait. Putin is threatening to provide weapons to NATO's enemies to attack NATO, except I went through a long explanation about why it's total BS. Ukrainian drones hit an oil refinery and fuel depot in Russia. Russian warships are heading to the Caribbean for a exercise, which nobody cares about other than the fact that the Russians didn't bother telling us, which is incredibly rude and dangerous and immature and typical. And two final stories. A Polish border guard who was wounded in an attack from a migrant from Belarus that the Russians sent died from the attack, which is bad news. And today is also the 1-year anniversary of Russia's attack on the Kakhovka Dam, which was the dam in Ukraine that the Russians attacked that ended up wiping out like lots of people and even a lot of the Russians' own troops. It was kind of stupid of them, but oh well. All right, that is it for the news, guys. Saturday morning, we've got our show for the subscribers only, the monthly subscribers on TikTok and YouTube, so consider joining us. Do check out the auctions over on Discord. The auctions end tomorrow night for the week. We got a lot of cool stuff from Ukraine, and half the money goes back to Ukraine as a donation, and half the money goes to support my work, so go check it out. Thank you, Ernie. You can find Discord via my profile on TikTok. Click the Linktree link. Look for Discord. Click it. You guys go to my description of the show. Again, look for the Linktree link, click it, and look for Discord. All right, guys, have a good night. Thank you, Mods. Thank you, Ash and Manda and Big Hawk and anybody else who was with us tonight helping. And I will see, and thank you, Ernie, for the gift. I will see all of you again tomorrow night, 6 o'clock Eastern Time, US. All right? All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good night. Have a good night. Burp. And you all